Most seniors are using olive oil every single day, believing they're doing something great for their health. And in many cases, they genuinely are. But there's a critical layer to this story that almost nobody is talking about, and I want to change that today. My name is Dr. Lena, and for more than 2 decades, I've been working closely with adults over 50, helping them navigate the real science behind what they eat and how it affects their heart, their brain, their weight, and their overall quality of life. Olive oil is one of the most common topics that comes up in those conversations, and every single time I'm reminded of how much confusion exists around something that should be straightforward. People have embraced olive oil enthusiastically, and I understand why. The research behind it is genuinely impressive. But enthusiasm without accuracy is where things start to go wrong. Because after 50, your body responds differently to everything, including the small daily habits most people never think twice about. Your cardiovascular system is working under more pressure. Your hormonal environment has shifted. Your digestive function has changed. Your metabolism has slowed. And the habits that felt consequence-free in your 40s can carry real weight now, sometimes literally. A landmark analysis featured in one of medicine's most respected publications found that extra virgin olive oil significantly reduced major cardiovascular risk in adults over 55. But the key phrase there is within a balanced Mediterranean eating pattern, not poured carelessly, not purchased blindly, not used in ways that strip it of everything that makes it valuable in the first place. There are 5 specific errors I see seniors making with olive oil on a daily basis, and each one quietly erodes the benefits they believe they're getting. The first one starts before you even get the bottle home, and you've probably made it on your last grocery trip without realizing it. To understand why these mistakes matter so deeply, you first need to understand why olive oil earned its extraordinary reputation in the first place. Researchers studying populations around the Mediterranean coastline kept encountering a fascinating pattern. People in parts of Greece, southern Italy, and coastal Spain were living longer, experiencing dramatically lower rates of heart disease and stroke, and maintaining cognitive sharpness well into their late decades. Scientists investigated every angle of their lifestyle, and their diet kept rising to the top of the findings. Olive oil was the central fat in their cooking and eating patterns, and it became the nutritional symbol of what researchers called the Mediterranean diet, now one of the most extensively studied and consistently supported dietary approaches in all of science. One large-scale clinical trial conducted in Spain followed thousands of adults and found that those who followed a Mediterranean pattern with generous use of extra virgin olive oil had nearly 30% fewer serious cardiovascular events than those eating a conventional low-fat diet. That finding reshuffled how cardiologists thought about dietary fat. But somewhere between the research and the grocery shelf, a dangerous oversimplification took hold. Olive oil stopped being seen as a high-quality food used thoughtfully within a healthy pattern and started being treated like a health guarantee in a bottle. Pour it on anything, use as much as you want, slather it everywhere, and you're protected. That kind of thinking is exactly what leads to the 5 mistakes I'm going to walk you through. And the first one is happening in supermarkets across the country right now. Here's something the olive oil industry doesn't advertise widely, but that researchers and investigative journalists have documented repeatedly. A significant portion of the bottles labeled extra virgin olive oil on American store shelves don't fully meet the standards required for that designation. Independent laboratory testing, including work published by a well-known university food science center, found that large percentages of imported extra virgin olive oils failed international quality benchmarks. Some were blended with cheaper refined oils like canola or sunflower. Others were pressed from damaged or overly oxidized olives. Still others were old enough that the beneficial compounds had already degraded to negligible levels. The reason this matters so much is that the health benefits of olive oil aren't primarily coming from the fat itself, though that matters too. They're coming from a class of natural plant compounds called polyphenols. These are potent antioxidants that reduce inflammation, protect blood vessels, and support cognitive function. Low-quality, mislabeled, or degraded oil has almost none of them. You could be using olive oil every single day with complete confidence and getting almost nothing you think you're getting. Here's what to look for when you're standing in the grocery aisle. The bottle should be dark glass, not clear plastic, and not clear glass. Light breaks down polyphenols faster than almost anything else, and if the oil has been sitting in a transparent container under store lighting, the damage may already be done. Look for a harvest date, not just a best by date. Olive oil is a fresh agricultural product, and its polyphenol content is most robust within 12 to 18 months of harvest. If there's no harvest date printed on the label, that's a meaningful warning sign. Look for certification seals. In the United States, the California Olive Oil Council certification is one of the most reliable signals of quality. European PDO and PGI designations serve a similar function. And pay attention to price. Genuinely high-quality extra virgin olive oil costs more to produce than most commodity oils. If the price seems too good to be true, the quality probably reflects that. Now, even if you buy the best bottle available, the second mistake can still undermine everything, and it happens right at your stove almost every single morning. Let's say you've done everything right at the store. Dark glass bottle, harvest date, certification seal, reasonable price. You feel good. You get home, heat up the skillet, and pour. And you keep pouring because you want enough coverage, because you want flavor, because you've heard olive oil is good for you, and more of a good thing must be better. But here's the number most people genuinely don't have in their head. 1 tablespoon of olive oil contains approximately 120 calories. 1 tablespoon. When people cook freely without measuring, they're typically using 3 to 5 tablespoons per cooking session, sometimes more. That's anywhere from 360 to 600 calories added to a meal before the food itself is even factored in. And why does this matter more urgently after 50 than it did before? Because the metabolic buffer you once had is substantially smaller now. Muscle mass decreases with age, which means your resting calorie burn drops. Hormonal shifts affect how efficiently your body processes and stores energy. Research from the National Institute on Aging has shown consistently that even modest caloric surpluses in older adults are more likely to be deposited as visceral fat, the metabolically dangerous kind that accumulates around internal organs and drives inflammation, disrupts insulin sensitivity, and increases cardiovascular strain. Many seniors who genuinely believe they're eating well and using olive oil as a health strategy are unknowingly adding hundreds of extra calories per day and can't understand why their weight won't move or why their energy feels sluggish. The solution is refreshingly simple. 1 to 2 tablespoons per meal, measured until you've genuinely recalibrated your eye for what that looks like. Most people are astonished when they first measure and see how far off they were. This single adjustment, made consistently, can shift your health trajectory more than you might expect. If the second mistake adds unwanted calories, the third one actually destroys the beneficial compounds in the oil before they ever reach your body. And this is the one that surprised even experienced researchers studying Mediterranean cooking. Here's the biochemistry you need to know. Every cooking fat has what's called a smoke point, the temperature at which it begins to break down and release harmful byproducts. For extra virgin olive oil, that threshold sits somewhere between 375 and 405 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on the specific oil. That sounds like a generous range, but a standard pan on high heat can surpass that temperature quickly, sometimes within just a few minutes of preheating. When extra virgin olive oil crosses its smoke point, 2 things happen that should concern you deeply. The polyphenols, those anti-inflammatory antioxidants your heart and brain depend on, begin to degrade and are essentially lost. At the same time, the overheated oil begins producing oxidation byproducts, including aldehydes and free radicals. Research published in a peer-reviewed food science journal found that repeatedly overheated cooking oils can generate compounds that over time may contribute to cellular inflammation and damage, which is the precise opposite of what you were trying to achieve. The takeaway isn't that you should never cook with olive oil. It's that you should keep the heat low to medium when you do, and that some of the most valuable ways to use it involve no heat at all. Drizzle it over finished dishes. Stir it into soups just before serving. Pour it over steamed vegetables or roasted fish after they come off the heat. Use it as a finishing oil on whole grain bread. When the polyphenols never encounter high temperatures, they arrived in your body fully intact and fully functional. The fourth mistake is one that challenges a very common mental shortcut, and the research behind it should genuinely change how you think about what olive oil can and cannot do. I want to ask you something directly. Do you ever drizzle olive oil over a salad and then eat that salad alongside packaged crackers, processed deli meat, a store-bought sauce loaded with refined ingredients, or something from a fast food container? And if so, do you feel like the olive oil is balancing things out? Like it's earning you some credit to spend elsewhere on the plate? This mindset is extraordinarily common, and it's one of the quietest ways people undermine their own health intentions. Olive oil is not a neutralizer. It doesn't cancel out inflammatory damage caused by other foods. It doesn't function like medication that offsets the effects of ultra-processed ingredients. It works synergistically within an overall dietary pattern, and when that pattern is built significantly on refined grains, processed oils, added sugars, and artificial additives, the olive oil cannot deliver what it's designed to deliver. Researchers at a leading school of public health have been very explicit in their findings that the cardiovascular and anti-inflammatory benefits most strongly associated with olive oil appear in people who use it as part of a whole food, plant-forward eating approach, not as an addition to an otherwise poor diet. Ultra-processed foods drive systemic inflammation, disrupt gut microbiome balance, spike blood sugar, and interfere with the very metabolic pathways olive oil is trying to support. After 50, your gut is already managing more challenges than it did a decade ago. Layering inflammatory foods into the mix and hoping olive oil compensates is like reinforcing one wall of a structure while the rest of it deteriorates. The five-step solution is to let olive oil play the role it was scientifically observed playing in those long-lived Mediterranean populations. Pair it with vegetables, legumes, whole grains, fish, fresh herbs, and minimally processed whole foods. In that context, it genuinely delivers. Outside of it, it's largely symbolic. And now, the fifth mistake. This one is spreading rapidly through social media platforms, and it's reaching senior audiences faster than almost anything I've seen. Scroll through health and wellness content on any major platform right now, and you'll likely encounter videos of people taking large spoonfuls of olive oil first thing in the morning, sometimes 2, 3, or 4 tablespoons straight, with no food before any other intake. The claims attached to these videos typically involve detoxification, metabolic acceleration, overnight inflammation reversal, and digestive cleansing. Dr. Lena wants to address this clearly because patients have been asking about it, and the appeal is understandable. If a small amount of olive oil is beneficial, a large concentrated dose must produce dramatic results, right? Here's what's actually happening physiologically. Your digestive system, particularly after 50, is not equipped to process large volumes of pure fat on an empty stomach. When you introduce several tablespoons of oil at once without food to moderate the digestive response, your gallbladder must release a sudden, significant surge of bile to manage it. For people with gallbladder sensitivity, gallstones, or compromised gallbladder function, and many older adults have one of these conditions without knowing it, this can trigger nausea, cramping, and genuine pain. The loose stool and gastrointestinal distress that many people experience after attempting these olive oil shots isn't a detox response. It's your gut sending a distress signal about an unmanageable fat load. And critically, there is no credible peer-reviewed clinical evidence that consuming olive oil in large amounts on an empty stomach produces any health benefit beyond what you'd get from using it normally and thoughtfully with food. What it does reliably produce is excess caloric intake, digestive discomfort, and sometimes a very urgent need to find a bathroom. 1 to 2 tablespoons spread across your meals with real food is what the research actually supports. Now, let's shift completely, because I don't want you leaving this video feeling cautious about olive oil. Used correctly, it's one of the most extraordinary foods available to older adults, and the science supporting that is deep, consistent, and genuinely remarkable. When you use high-quality extra virgin olive oil the right way, here's what's happening inside your body. The compound that researchers find most fascinating is called oleocanthal. Scientists at a sensory research center discovered that oleocanthal inhibits the same inflammatory enzymes targeted by ibuprofen. That's not a loose analogy. That's a documented biochemical mechanism. Every time you use good olive oil appropriately, you're delivering a gentle, natural, daily anti-inflammatory signal at the cellular level. And given that chronic low-grade inflammation is now understood to be a primary driver of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cognitive decline, arthritis, and numerous other conditions that become more prevalent after 50, managing it consistently through food is one of the most powerful long-term health strategies available. Olive oil also actively supports your cardiovascular system by helping raise HDL cholesterol, the protective form, while reducing the oxidized form of LDL cholesterol, most strongly associated with arterial plaque accumulation. The American Heart Association has highlighted oleic acid, the primary monounsaturated fat in olive oil, as beneficial for blood pressure regulation and arterial flexibility. For brain health specifically, research from a major American university found that extra virgin olive oil helped preserve memory function and reduce accumulation of the tau proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease in animal studies. Human research is actively continuing, but the early indicators are compelling enough that neuroscientists are paying close attention. Many patients who incorporate olive oil consistently and correctly also report meaningful reductions in joint stiffness and improvements in digestive comfort over time, effects that align with what we understand about its systemic anti-inflammatory properties. This is a remarkable food, and its power is most fully expressed when you understand that getting older changes the stakes around every nutritional decision you make. Aging is accompanied by a biological phenomenon researchers now call inflammaging. It's a gradual, persistent, low-grade inflammatory state that builds across decades and underlies most of the chronic conditions that accelerate after 50. Blood vessels become less flexible. Gut function slows. The body becomes more reactive to blood sugar fluctuations. The heart works harder to maintain what used to require less effort. None of this is a sentence. It's biology. And biology responds to the signals you send it through food, movement, sleep, and stress management. The monounsaturated fats in olive oil help maintain vascular pliability. The polyphenols work directly against the inflammaging process. The oleic acid supports healthier cholesterol dynamics at exactly the age when those dynamics tend to drift. The populations researchers have identified as among the longest lived and healthiest on Earth, studied extensively through the Blue Zones research framework, consistently use olive oil as their primary dietary fat. Not because it became fashionable, because across decades of real-life dietary practice, it works. After 50, you don't need to eat less carefully. You need to eat more deliberately. And olive oil, used correctly, is one of the most deliberate and strategic things you can include. Before moving to the practical summary, there's an important subset of people who need to approach olive oil with additional thoughtfulness, and you may belong to that group without being fully aware of it. For the majority of older adults, olive oil is extremely well tolerated and broadly beneficial. But certain conditions require more care. If you have a history of gallbladder issues, including gallstones or previous gallbladder attacks, or if your gallbladder has been removed, larger amounts of olive oil consumed at once can provoke significant discomfort because of the bile response required to process concentrated fat. Smaller amounts distributed across multiple meals are typically better managed. If you live with IBS, Crohn's disease, or another form of digestive sensitivity, high-fat foods can sometimes aggravate symptoms even when those fats are healthy ones. Starting with smaller amounts alongside food and observing your body's response is a sensible approach. If you take blood thinners like warfarin or medications that affect blood pressure, olive oil's natural influences on blood viscosity and arterial tone make it worth discussing any significant increase in consumption with your physician. And if you're following a medically supervised calorie restriction program, olive oil needs to be counted. It's calorie-dense and genuinely beneficial, but it must be accounted for within your overall intake targets. These aren't reasons to avoid olive oil. For the vast majority of people reading this, it remains one of the safest, most evidence-supported dietary choices available. But personalized health always accounts for individual circumstances, and working with your doctor is always the right instinct. Now, let's bring everything together, because after covering what goes wrong, I want to leave you with a clear, simple, actionable picture of what going right actually looks like. Using olive oil correctly is not complicated. Buy extra virgin in a dark glass bottle with a visible harvest date and a certification seal if possible. And don't let price alone determine your choice. A little more investment here pays dividends in actual polyphenol content. Store your bottle away from heat and direct light, ideally in a cool, dark cabinet, not near the stove or on a sunlit countertop, because heat and light degrade the very compounds you're paying for. Use 1 to 2 tablespoons per meal, measured until you've truly internalized what that quantity looks like, because the gap between what most people pour and what the research supports is much larger than almost anyone expects. Cook with it on low to medium heat and embrace the habit of using it unheated as a finishing touch on completed dishes, because unheated extra virgin olive oil delivers its full complement of beneficial compounds directly to your body. And pair it with real whole food, because olive oil performs at its scientifically observed potential when it's embedded in a dietary pattern built around vegetables, legumes, fish, whole grains, and fresh produce, not layered on top of a foundation of ultra-processed ingredients hoping to compensate. That is it. No morning rituals with tablespoons of straight oil. No dramatic protocols. No supplements. Just excellent oil, used in the right amount, at the right temperature, alongside the right foods, every day as a natural and enjoyable part of how you eat. The science behind olive oil is real. It's deep. It's been replicated across populations and decades of research. But science applied carelessly isn't science working for you, it's science being wasted. What you buy matters. What you do with it matters. How much you use matters. What surrounds it on your plate matters. And the viral trends you see online matter too, because following the wrong ones can quietly dismantle the very protections you're trying to build. After 50, every meal carries more weight than it did before. Not as a burden, but as an opportunity. An opportunity to send your body a clear, consistent signal that you're supporting your heart, your brain, your joints, your metabolism, and your energy with intention and with knowledge. Olive oil used correctly is one of the most clear and research-supported ways to send that signal every single day. So go look at your bottle right now. Check the glass. Find the harvest date. Measure your next pour just once and see what you actually discover. Small awareness, practiced consistently, creates real change. If this gave you something genuinely useful, something you'll actually carry into your kitchen the next time you reach for that bottle, please take a moment to like and share it, because this kind of information deserves to reach every older adult who's trying to make genuinely smart decisions for their long-term health. I'm Dr. Leanna, and this is exactly the work I'm here to do, cutting through confusion, following the evidence, and giving you the honest, practical guidance your body has earned.